computer here. I think I am doing that as well. Yes, I'm recording as well.
Okay, so we were talking just a minute ago. Good afternoon, my name is Dawn, and I'm interviewing Julian Venables today, the renowned astrologer and author of Divine Order.
Hello, Dawn. Nice to meet you. Good
Nice to
afternoon,
see you
and thank
too.
you for inviting me to be interviewed today.
You're very welcome. We were talking just earlier about your personality in general, and we started to look into how you managed, considering the connections in your chart, how you managed to focus for 5 years to write this book, because it's such a deep book, and it obviously shows that you've spent a lot of time researching it. And in order to do that, you have to have a lot of patience. And yeah, tell me about that.
Well, thank you, Dawn. I've been an astrologer. I first discovered astrology in 1988 when I was 21 years old, and it's been a long path. And I've always thinking to myself, one of the things that came through quite strongly, particularly after I did my professional training. So after I got my diploma in 2010.
Who did you train with?
The faculty. So I got the diploma in 2010, and I started to ask myself, why aren't astrologers enlightened? Why is it just a system of words and language? And where's the non-connect? Because in Tibet they have a form of astrology, in China they have a form of astrology. In fact, all the Asian nations have a lot of astrology, and they also have embedded into their belief systems, they also have techniques for enlightenment.
But in the Western world, this is a bit of a disconnect, isn't it? We don't have that in our culture. It's not something that we understand or appreciate. Yeah,
exactly. And I started to ask myself, why don't we have that in the West? Where did we go wrong? Because we should all have it. Yeah, why have we not got that? So that was my main kind of question, was there must be a way to find enlightenment with astrology. There must be something so that people can have a perception of the world that is enlightening.
So the fact is that I can sense that your knowledge, despite the fact that you've done some training, is so deep, it's almost instinctive as well as learned. So where is the instinctive part coming from?
Thank you. I mean, I've done a bit of Buddhism, but I'm not going to say that I found the need to do the Buddhism was very necessary, because I was also on the search for enlightenment. I had my chart done by an ex-monk in Scotland at Sammy Ling Monastery in Scotland in about the year 2000, maybe. And he looked at my chart and he said, it's very interesting. He said, you're going to get a glimpse of enlightenment in your lifetime. And I was like, really? How? You know, like, God, tell me more, you know? And he was just like, he just handed my chart back and said, just go for it, you know, just go for it and you'll get it. And I was like, oh, okay. So I started sitting on a cushion in the temple, following my breath through my nose, really trying to get it, you know. And I thought the more I did it, it was very interesting. I was, you know, but I wasn't getting enlightened. You know, I didn't feel I was enlightened. And various things happened anyway. And finally, I met a very interesting spiritual person who told me some very clever techniques, and it just kind of unraveled itself in front of me. And it all came about actually because I'd also met a Catholic priest who told me about a lot about C.S. Lewis,
right,
the author, and the Narnia series, and so I got a lot about understanding about that, and through my research into C.S. Lewis, I then realized there was this branch of seekers of very clever techniques, and I just listened to them for a bit, and I suddenly realized that what all the Eastern enlightened gurus, spiritual enlightened people, they talk about what they talk about. And I suddenly realized how it had to apply to astrology, which led to me writing the book, or finally putting the book together in a way that I knew was needed. I really think that the astrology community needs a new perception. We need to have that perception. I'm absolutely convinced, which is why I wrote the book. We need to see the difference between awareness and consciousness. And the awareness and consciousness is in the chart. And it is the primary motion and the secondary motion, the two motions of the chart. And primary motion is awareness, which is the four angles. So ascendant, descendant, midheaven, and IC. They are the first breath when we arrive in our incarnation and we're born. The first breath sets the chart, and the first breath is immediately the state of awareness that we enter this plane on. We enter this earthly realm on. So we have these four angles, and so they are awareness, and that's primary motion. So that's the fact that we've landed on the planet, 2 feet on the planet's surface. We are embodied, incarnated here, in a corporeal material form, and that is awareness, because that is the state of awareness. To have that is to be aware that I am alive, that everyone is alive. I am alive. In my state of being, I am alive. So
that you've landed in the world in this carnation.
So say that question again, please.
That you've landed in the world.
Yes.
In this carnation.
I call it like that. I mean, it's a bit sort of it's like a sense of landing, isn't it? But it's just being born, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but that time of birth, the timing of the birth, which is of course what the astrology chart is the time that we were born, and it's to the minute. We ask for the accuracy. We ask for the minute of birth.
Do you think we choose it, Julian? Do you think it's something we choose, or do you think it's an accident that we're born with that?
Well, I think it's. I don't think it's an accident. I think the ego will tell us it's an accident. As we grow up into our ego identity, it will turn around and tell us that we have an accident of birth. Oh dear, I got born in that way. But so therefore that could be an ego-based, like a reflection of saying I'm not perfect enough because I've compared myself to too many other people, right? Which would be a sense of being an accident of birth. Yeah. But I think we're born into the perfect state. But saying that, of course, in Buddhism they say the best gift of all is health. Yeah.
Is health.
The gift of life is to have to have good health.
Right. Okay.
So I'm not, but I don't want to go down that ethics road at this point in time, talking about whether we were healthy at birth or not, or I'm just talking very generally today, if that's all right. But I think that we could say that is it yeah. So you asked me the question: is it an accident, or is it? Do we choose?
Yeah.
I think we have. I think what we have is the soul. Yeah, the. I suppose it's the energy of soul, the source of soul, the source of what is instilled as awareness, and out of which consciousness grows, is everything. Because everything has an awareness, like animism. Everything is alive. Plants are alive. Animals are alive. Everything has soul in it. I mean, I've got pets. I've got a cat and a dog, and I look at them and talk to them, And to me, they have the same quality of soul. When I look in their eyes, I see their same quality of soul as I have in myself. But I have maybe a few more levels of
Consciousness,
interaction. Animals, to me, my cat and my dog, they are very first person. Yeah. So and this is what I talk about in the book, because first person awareness is immediately meeting the world and having the world within us, because the world is within me.
But what you've done very beautifully, I feel, is that you seem to have studied the planets that reflect who we are. So another astrologer once said to me that these planets are simply an archetype of us, of different parts of us. And I've never really been able to put that into something that makes sense. I understand it intellectually, but to understand it from an emotional perspective, or should I say, maybe it's the other way around. I kind of get it from an emotional perspective, but to be able to put it into some kind of intellectual sense is very difficult for me, because on the basis that the planets are archetypes of us, it means that we've created those to explain, if you like, who we are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
And is that the case?
I think if one does these first person exercises, one realizes when one looks at the heavens above us and looks up into the sky, I can see stars and I can see planets and I can see the sun and I can see the moon. Because I can see those visually, they're in my sensory field, in my visual sensory field. Therefore, they are within me, because my mind is creating them. And so those, as they move and are mapped out in their cycles, so those movements can be seen as being a part of me. And that is because we are at one. We all share the same awareness, and we all have different levels of consciousness that are constantly growing from us, growing out of us, growing through time. You know,
And those levels,
moment, and we're constantly having this flow that's developing.
And those levels are determined by the aspects that these planets make the moment we're born.
Yeah. The primary motion points, the four angles point into the secondary motion. So the ascendant is pointing towards the zodiac sign, the rising in the east. The midheaven is pointed to the culmination zodiac sign directly above, and descendant I see doing the same. And so that's the extension, that's the journey. That awareness is vast and infinite, because the world is contained within me. There is no end to it. Now, by doing an experiment, one can understand why the world is infinite and within me. Because if you close your eyes, right now I'm in a room and it has four walls and it has things in it, objects that would activate my consciousness. But if I close my eyes, I'm still in a space of awareness that is in fact infinite, because now there's no measurable dimensions when my eyes
right.
And that's like outer space.
Mm-hmm.
So the inner space is the same as the outer space when one's eyes are closed. When one's eyes are opened, then there's measurement to things, dimension.
And that's when the limitation comes in, right?
Which of course is the seventh heaven, which is Saturn. because all the seven heavens share the same space. All the interlocking crystalline spheres of light share the same rim or the same space, different expressions. So when you said the limitations come in, yes, they do, because Saturn limits. Saturn actually creates reality, the edge.
But
But in
interestingly,
that edge, everything in it is also the moon, and is also the sun, and is also
absolutely.
yeah.
But what I found interesting about your book is that we all have this kind of idea of what the different planets are and their characteristics. And the overall sense that I got from your book was it was very Venusian. Is that how you? Yeah. So even in describing Saturn, because Saturn is meant to be a very hard, cold planet, is a real teacher, like a very stern headmistress or headmaster. And yet Saturn is portrayed, I feel, you get the sense that Saturn has a very soft side to it. So the book in general is very soft. It's very gentle. It's coming from that place. Is it because maybe you have more Venus in your chart, or what?
Right.
How would you explain that?
Yeah.
And do you agree?
I had explained that because I submitted the manuscript to my editor, who was asking. We then talked about demographics. Who am I appealing to? Who do I want to read this? What sort of people do I want to read? Do I want to read this book? And I decided that naturally I wanted as sort of as many people as possible. So a more of an easy ride rather than a hard and bumpy ride was required, so that it appealed to many people, by having a friendly approach.
Right. Okay, I understand. So it's not so frightening.
Yeah. And that was what's important to me, so that people go, I enjoyed reading it, and I didn't get too lost. I needed to set out the basic theory in a simple, easy to read book, because it's a really deep theory, and the manuscript that I handed to my editor, he took out loads of stuff, and said, well, I'm not sure about that, and we ended up with what's there, right? So there's more, there's kind of a lot more to go in.
Well, it was
if I went further in, if I did get it more complicated, I wouldn't be appealing to everybody. I wanted to try and appeal to everybody.
So it's almost like introducing astrology in a easy way to the Western world.
Yeah, it's astrology without charts, actually. If you look at the charts in it, what I've done is I took the system of the 7 ages of man, which is from As You Like It, William Shakespeare, but it's the old Babylonian system of the 7 ages. It's like a form of Fidaria, so you have the seven cycles, mapping one's life out, in which you're getting to know oneself, as you go through each stage. And I mapped that, and I eased it out into general use by revealing the planetary hours as a usable technique, because you see, birth charts is quite a modern phenomenon. In the time, if you go back to William Lilly's time, no one knew their time of birth. That's why horary was so popular, because no one knew their time of birth.
So how did horary?
Charts were actually quite rare. Birth natal charts were actually quite rare.
How did horaries become relevant? Are you saying that instead of looking at a natal chart, we would just basically ask a question of the charts, right? Okay, that's how William Lilly began, was it? Asking questions.
That was why horary was so popular in that renaissance of astrology.
Right.
It wasn't about a natal chart. The time of birth was usually reserved for very high status people. So that's why you can get kings, princes, princesses, famous people's charts. They have But for example, we don't have William Shakespeare's chart, do we? We have the day of baptism. Yeah, that's his chart, which is maybe no one's quite sure when that was, but back in those days, 500 years ago, the day of the child was usually baptized within 3 days.
So would you have been able to tell his character even basically from the chosen time rather than the real birth time? Can you still read a person's character? And how does that work?
Well, I mean, well, yes. I mean, I only gave Shakespeare as an example,
Yeah.
because there is no time of birth, there is no actual date or time of birth for him. There's a baptism chart.
So basically, we in William Lily's
I was giving you that as an example of how the fact that 500, 400 years ago, times of birth were not necessarily recorded before mechanical clocks.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah?
So it's quite possible that William Lilly would then look at the character of the person and the chart would back it up. Could that have been a way of reading somebody's I wouldn't say birth chart because you didn't know the time, but somebody's chart in general.
You have a horary question, it's a question asked at the moment, and there's a planet that represents the querent, the person asking the question.
Of course, but if it's not based on a horary chart and you see the character of the person, was there a way of matching the astrology round about the average time that they were born, and then you could determine how their life was going to be through a natal chart? That's what I'm trying to say.
Well,
is that how they did it? If it wasn't through horary?
Yeah, I'm not absolutely certain. I just don't think there was the accuracy there. Yeah. So, and what I think is, funnily enough, I mean, this is quite a wide theory for me to say this, but the current state of astrology on the internet is that people are naturally starting to get a lot more dumbed down again. And the accuracy of astrology is starting to lose a little bit of its foothold. That's why all these meme writings going on and people saying, oh, I'm this and that, and that. They're talking astrology and a lot more greater detail than just sun signs. So in the 1970s, it was sun signs, and that was the way of creating a wide field of interest. Now, these days, there's a lot more talk of the actual planets and the planets' aspects and things like that. But there's also that kind of slightly, who are the worst signs of the zodiac kind of memes and things like that. And it seems to be watering down a lot of the quality because it's not allowing for the uniqueness of the individual anymore. It's like generalizations.
So is this going to be an inspiration for your next book to readdress that issue?
It's interesting, isn't it? It's definitely got me thinking. But the reason I put the planetary hours in was because I wanted a way. So what I was trying to do with that was I was trying to work out what I would call the mind stream of consciousness. So it's like, to me, it's like a raging river, or sometimes a radio antennae that's picking up all types of signals. When you've got like a radio dial and you can turn the dial and it goes, when you get like a bit of music coming in here, a bit of voice coming in here, and lots of crackling and things in between. I actually think that's like a kind of an antennae. I'm my own radio dial, picking up stuff. I don't know where it comes from. Sometimes I'm like, whoa, what? Where's this stuff? Thoughts, memory here, thinking this here, and it's all in the space around me. The mind does this amazing thing where stuff's coming up from all over the place, and I can sort of locate it sometimes, as the internal narrative I'm talking about. Like, it's inside. It's not outside; it's inside. But you're getting, the idea of what I'm sort of trying to explain that. Right? But where does all this thinking come from? What is it? Right? There must be a way of describing it better. There must be a way of understanding it, you know, because sometimes my mind runs away with itself, you know, and I'm like, well, why is it running away with itself, and how come it does that? So there must be a way to understand that a bit better.
But that's about you just opening up the frequency to connect
Yeah,
up with the
and the
planets.
frequencies of the planetary hours.
Yes. We have to end there. I think it's a wonderful book that you've written. I want to read it again, having spoken to you about it. I'm sure it will sell loads, but I want to ask you to write something else following that, because I think when somebody reads this, they'll want to keep reading.
Fantastic.
Congratulations.
Dawn, thank you so much. It's really nice
So,
today.
so finish your recording.
Can I hold the book up for people to show people?
Of course.
This is actually the Amazon copy. I've got a much better one over there. But, it's got the Amazon thing on it.
So where can people buy this? Waterstones?
On my website. Oh, I haven't got a distribution deal yet. No.
Okay.
On my website, it's self-published. Okay, so please visit my website, londonastrologer.co.uk.
Can you say that again?
Londonastrologer.
.co.uk.
Or julianvenables.com. Just put in Julian Venables Astrologer into Google and you'll find me, you know.
Right.
So
okay.
It's a self-published book. If you buy it on my website for £17, you'll get a signed copy. The 17 is postage as well. So all in for 17 and you get it signed by me. If it's on Amazon, it's a bit cheaper. And Amazon send it to you, but I won't be able to sign it for you. But please do give it a read, because I do believe that this is my Pluto and Aquarius book. I think I'm trying to bring astrology, the new perception, what I believe is a perception for astrologers to really enjoy. It's something to enjoy, something to explore, and it's easy to understand, as we've talked about. I really hope you get a copy. And my offer, Dawn,
yes,
if you buy a copy on Amazon and you leave me a 5-star review with a few kind and nice words, then if you get in touch with me and I read the review that you've left, I will give you a free reading.
A free astrology reading.
A free astrology reading.
Right. And you said something about Pluto and Aquarius. And Pluto is just about to enter into Aquarius. And I think anyone who's remotely interested in astrology will find it fascinating for you to do another talk like this about what's likely to happen with Pluto going into Aquarius. I'd love to interview you around that. May I?
Oh, yes, please do. I mean, you know, anytime, Dawn.
Okay.
I love talking, you know. It's fantastic. I'm so pleased that you approached me today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Julian.
Yeah. And I hope we get to talk again soon. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's end.
Thank you.
Have you finished the recording?
Hang on a minute.